Welcome to Sleep Paralysis Stories 1. 1. My Sleep Paralysis by MrDubStepOriginal on Reddit. Before I start, you have to know I have a long history of multiple sleep paralysis ever since I was a child. I dare say multiple in a single night. I'm an 18-year-old male, and I moved out of my mother's 2 years ago, and have been independent since then, and have been roommates with my uncle for a couple months. But there's a different story. Anyways, this is going to be a little bit awkward, given the fact that I was listening to scary stories while trying to fall back asleep after waking up at 5 a.m. The same date that I'm writing this post, September 25th, 2018. While I was falling asleep with my headphones on, I started to realize that I had woken up, but my body couldn't move. Now it's weird for me given the fact that I haven't had any sleep paralysis recently for a very long time, but I knew what this was that I was going through. My vision started to blur, and my head felt heavy, but I could still hear the voice coming out of my headphones, narrating the story. The strange thing is that somehow I managed to move my hand and tried to take off my earbuds. As much as I tried, I couldn't take them off, and it's as if they were glued to my ears. I somehow managed to take them off, but here's where it got freaky. I could still hear the voice. I touched my ears and checked if there was anything there. Nothing. I couldn't feel the earbuds at all. I was weirded out, yelling my uncle's name, calling his name to see if he could hear me. But there was no answer. Every time I tried to yell, my voice got weak. It's as if instead of yelling, I was whispering in a loud way. And that's when I started to see things, like demons and deformed faces, just staring at me and smiling evilly. I couldn't explain how they looked, but they were flashing in the ceiling. Weird, right? Yeah, I know. As I was sort of freaking out, I literally did what any young kid would do, and I hid under my blanket. Not because I was very scared or frightened, but to see if those faces would go away. Though they did, it doesn't end there. Here's where the most freaky and weird shit happened. My vision started to clear, and I was able to move. That's when I realized I never even moved a muscle the whole time I was going through the sleep paralysis. Turns out I was hallucinating and imagining that I was actually moving and yelling. Like I've said, I have had experience with sleep paralysis for a long time, so I've totally experienced on how to actually get out of it when it's a normal one, where you're just awake and can't move. Yeah, I know, that's the whole point of one, but not at all of them. Hallucinations and imagining. This was one of the few paralysis where I hallucinated and imagined things. Like I've said, I haven't had one in years, so I could say, this is my most recent one, and I know it's probably not that scary. But for those who have experienced sleep paralysis and know how terrifying it could be and get, it takes a strong mind and soul to get out of one, because you're literally struggling with yourself to be able to move, and just to come back to see reality for those who never experienced sleep paralysis in their lives. I really hope you never do. 2. My Sleep Paralysis or Ghost Story by HaTeNn on Reddit. So, I've never really talked about this, but it all started about 3 years ago when I was talking to this girl, Natalie. She lived in an older house and had the entire basement to herself. I remember her saying things about her house was haunted, etc. I don't really believe her until this one night. So me and my friend Nick are spending the night at her house. I remember my friend laying down on the couch around 9:30 p.m. and he was just staring blankly at the wall. I didn't think anything was wrong, so I thought he was just messing around. I started calling his name. Yo, Nick. Nick! Nothing. Couldn't get a response from her. Meanwhile, I was across the room with Natalie, sitting on her bed. After a minute of him staring blankly at the wall, he jumps off the couch saying, "I don't fuck with that. I don't fuck with that," freaking out, and Natalie started laughing. It didn't really dawn on me until later that I think she knew what was happening. Anyways, I started laughing too, thinking it was just a joke. About 5 minutes pass, and he calms down and sits back down on the couch. This is where things get a little creepy and interesting. She had this screen door in her room that opened outside. I specifically remember as soon as I took 2 steps out of her room to go outside, every single light in her room, including outlets, all blew out. It was pitch black, and it was really creepy for a second there. We tried everything, and the only thing in her room that would work was the lamp next to the couch, right next to Nick's head. Anyways, this was all kind of new to me. I didn't really know what to think about the situation. Then I remember things got weird in the room, like Natalie was getting super agitated over the littlest things and wouldn't let me sleep in her bed. So I was like, whatever, I'll just sleep on the floor at the foot of her bed. And I remember I could not fall asleep that night. I was just laying there while everyone else was asleep. And I had a sleep paralysis type feeling. I couldn't move or anything. And I remember this happened to me once while I was young. And all I could do was think to pray and start saying Our Father's Prayer in my head. When I was halfway through, it stopped, and I just tried to go back to sleep. About 30 seconds passed, and it hits me again. I can't move. This gives me chills just typing this. So then I started praying again and again. Halfway through the prayer, it stops. At this point, it was like whatever it was is gone, till about 30 seconds passed again, but this time, it was much more frightening. I remember it felt as if someone plugged me in to an outlet. I was being shocked all over my body. It was kind of shaking, and whatever it was holding me down hard. I remember trying to move my arms as hard as I could to rip the blanket off my neck, to wake Nick up for help. But in my head, I was saying Our Father, and it left halfway through again. And at this point, I was freaking out. I was literally scared for a few months after this, and I literally slept in the same room as my mom for a month. It took me a while to kind of make sense of what happened. But I think some entity or demon or something, I don't know, tried to mess with me and my friends. When I laughed and taunted it, it targeted me. This story is not over. So, this happened about 2 years ago when I moved into my new house, which I still live in today. I remember my aunt was visiting, and it was late at night, around 2 a.m. I was just chilling, playing video games, doing my thing, when I heard this weird sound to my left. I had my gaming headset on, so I ignored it and kept playing, when I thought I heard the same sound a second time from behind me on my bed. I took my headset off to wait to hear it again, to find out what it was. I sat there for 2 minutes, just waiting, when I hear this sound right next to me. It was just weird, and it creeped me the fuck out. So I ran into my mom's room and told her something was making sounds in my room. And she was like, "Oh, it's probably just the sprinkler system or some BS." And she went outside to check. I remember I walked back into my hall, to my room, and stood there waiting for my mom to come back inside, when I literally heard the loudest sound again, right in my ear. I ran outside of my house crying and freaking out to my mom, who thought I was crazy. I remember hearing the voice again while I was trying to sleep, and it kept telling it to go away, and I hadn't had any crazy stuff happen since, even though I do get sleep paralysis from time to time. The most recent experience I had was like a presence of a woman in my room, and I couldn't move. I don't know all that stuff, it's just creepy to me. So I figured I'd post about it to share my experience. 3. My first sleep paralysis story by TheStevieGames on Reddit. I don't remember exactly when this was. I'm pretty sure it was around March of 2018. I was 12 years old and in 7th grade. I often listened to and read scary stories online about things like sleep paralysis, but I never thought it would happen to me. So before I woke up, I was having a strange dream. I was playing Counter-Strike, but it felt like I wasn't playing. It felt like it was real. I was shooting some targets, and then I blacked out for a second. I woke up on the main road that goes into my neighborhood, and saw that the road was gone, and the houses on the street were all very small 2-story houses. There were elderly people standing in front of their houses all reading newspapers, and the sign at the front of my neighborhood read Brook. The rest of the letters were crumbling off. And then I appeared at my morning bus stop for school. Looking at my phone, everything was normal, until a bush that normally wasn't there screamed at me. I remember clearly feeling that this was normal, so I screamed back. We went back and forth until I woke up screaming. The screams echoed in my ears. I was in bed, looking at the wall, unable to move. I hadn't realized that I was experiencing sleep paralysis, but was still freaked out by the screaming, that I couldn't fall back asleep. I laid there not hearing anything for about 5 minutes. Then I heard what sounded like heavy boots hitting the ground in the living room, coming towards my bedroom area. Just so you know, outside of my bedroom, there is a hallway, and on the left is a bathroom, and at the end is my parents' bedroom. At that moment, I realized my dad was out of town on a business trip, and it was just me and my mom, and my 7-year-old brother. I heard the walking start up again, and come towards my room. The door opened, and whatever it was came in, walked to the side of my bed, and stared at me. I closed my eyes and began to pray. I'm not really religious, but it's the only thing I could think to do. After what felt like hours, I tried to turn over to look and see if anyone was there. I rolled over, and I opened my eyes and began to squint to see if the coast was clear. I crawl out of my bed slowly and look at the clock. It's 4:14 a.m. Dang, I got school tomorrow, I thought. I tiptoed over to my door and grabbed the decorative oar my mom put on my wall in my room and walked out into the hall. Our living room door was open with the lights on, which is not normal, especially when my dad is out of town. I check the bathroom and peek around the corner of the door. Nobody. So I make a silent sprint into my mom's room, putting the oar down on the floor, and I shake her awake. Quietly, I whisper her name. Ma, I think there's someone in the house. I heard walking around outside my room, and I begin to tear up, realizing that all may have been in my head, and I woke my mom up for nothing. She said it was all right, and we could go check the house real quick. I grab the oar and go to check the house with my mom. There was nobody in our house, so I go back to bed relieved that we were safe, that none of it was real. I haven't had sleep paralysis since, and I'm glad that it wasn't the worst. It seems like it was nothing compared to some of the other stories about it that I have heard about, or that I enjoy reading. And that's where our tale comes to an end, for now. Did the shadows of the story linger in your mind, or did they vanish with the dawn? Remember, darkness isn't always about what you can see. It's also about what you can't. If you enjoyed the chill down your spine, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more eerie tales that will haunt you. Until next time, keep your lights on and your doors locked. And sweet dreams, or rather nightmares. I'll see you in the shadows. And remember, don't shoot the messenger.